She has broken royal protocol, married men her father disapproved of, and even once eloped with an elephant trainer, trading the luxurious chambers of the palace for a shabby circus trailer. Princess Stephanie was born on 1st February 1965, the youngest daughter of Prince Rainier and Grace Kelly. From her mother, she inherited not only natural charisma and exquisite beauty, but also creative talents. Since childhood, she went to piano lessons, attended a ballroom dancing studio, and gymnastics section. However, young Stephanie was most of all interested in fashion. The princess made up outfits for her dolls and dreamed that one day she would become a real couturier, such as Marc Bohan or Edith Head. But fate decreed otherwise. On 13th September 1982, Princess Stephanie's life was divided into before and after. On that unfortunate day, she accompanied her mother on a road trip. Their journey took them through a mountain serpentine, and there, at a height of 45 meters, according to the official version, Grace Kelly had a rupture of a brain vessel. She lost control of the car and inadvertently directed it to the cliff. When rescuers arrived at the scene of the nightmarish car crash, Grace and Stephanie were still alive. They were taken to the hospital in Monte Carlo, where the Princess of Monaco, who did not regain consciousness, was connected to resuscitation equipment. The next day, Grace Kelly passed away. Princess Stephanie, who miraculously survived, was forbidden to attend her mother's funeral. Her treating doctor convinced the family that another stressful experience was contraindicated for a 17-year-old girl traumatized both physically and mentally. Not only did I go through the terrible trauma of losing my mother at a very young age, but I was by her side at the time of the accident, Stephanie said in 2002, speaking about the tragedy for the first time. No one can imagine how much I suffered and still suffer today. Rehabilitation of the young princess took almost a year, but 2 weeks after the car accident, she was allowed to return home from the hospital, and contrary to doctors' predictions, this only worsened Stephanie's emotional state. Shocked by the tragedy, Grace Kelly fans refused to accept the official version of the investigation, so they built their own theories about what happened. Their grief was transformed into rage, which fell on the only survivor of the car crash, the daughter of the princess. I was shocked when I first read in the newspaper that it turns out I killed my mom because I was driving at the time, Stephanie recounted 20 years later. But I was 17 at the time, and I had neither a driving license nor the desire to drive, especially since my father strictly forbade me to drive. Stephanie probably wanted to contradict the conspiracy theorists, to make a public speech to dispel these monstrous speculations, or at least to give a statement to the police, but Prince Rainier would not allow it. And as the Grimaldi family's strategy became silence, Princess Stephanie was left alone with her psychological trauma. She got several tattoos. To date, the princess is known to have at least 3 drawings on her body, and began to earn a reputation as a royal rebel. I realized how lucky I was to be alive, Stephanie later recounted. I tried to stay open to new things, telling myself tomorrow may never come. In fact, no one even tried to understand me or my behavior, which was simply a consequence of my desire to enjoy every moment of life. For Stephanie, savoring every moment of life meant immersing herself in a world of luxury, glamour, and high-ranking men. Thanks to the help of a friend, Princess Ira von Furstenberg, she got an internship with Marc Bohan, where she became a full member of the Couture Dream Team. She helped to choose fabrics, participated in the preparation of sketches for new collections, offered her own ideas, in short, did everything she dreamed of as a child. However, it turned out that even this was not enough to heal the heartache of 18-year-old Stephanie. Immediately after work, the daughter of a Monegasque prince, went to a nightclub where she transformed from a girl of noble blood into a wild child, as her mother once called her, a daring queen of the streets in a leather jacket and rough boots, who attracts the attention of the entire dance floor. Before long, any fashion party was considered a failure if Princess Stephanie wasn't there. She became a favorite of photographers and celebrity columnists who savored the details of her new romances, with musician Miguel Bose, motor racing driver Paul Belmondo, actors Anthony Delon and Christopher Lambert. Moreover, Stephanie often became the most discussed person of the past fashion event in the press. So, for example, after a party in honor of the House of Dior in February 1985, which was organized by the princess herself, Tatler wrote, "To get rid of boredom, people wondered why Princess Stephanie has such a sour expression on her face. Is it the absence of her next boyfriend, the prying paparazzi, or the dress too tight? But on the dance floor, she showed everyone what a real flash dance is all about." This lifestyle, of course, greatly interfered with Stephanie's work as a designer. She was late for the office. She was late for deadlines. As a result, her duties in the Dior fashion house were reduced to purely representational. But from now on, new horizons opened up before Stefania, who had already made herself known in high society. She turned into a fashion influencer and quite a successful model, who decorated the pages of such glossy publications as Vogue and Vanity Fair. In addition, the princess released several collections of swimwear under her own brand Pool position, and by the mid-1980s, she became interested in music, began recording songs and touring Europe. Her first song, Hurricane, released in 1986, became a hit and topped the world music charts, and the album that followed was a runaway success, over 2.5 million copies sold. However, Stephanie's second album somehow disappointed the public, and her short vocal career began to decline. In addition, in the early 1990s, all the attention of the princess shifted to her personal life. In 1991, In the Press appeared in the sensational news. Despite the protests of his father, Stephanie began to meet with his former bodyguard, Daniel Ducreux. Another ambiguous fact added to the piquancy of this story. Daniel's ex-lover was 6 months pregnant. It seemed that all around were against this affair, but Stephanie did not care about public opinion. And in 1992, she announced that she was expecting a child from Daniel. In total, the couple had 2 children, a son Louis and a daughter Pauline. By 1994, Prince Rainier finally softened towards his daughter's lover and agreed to give his blessing for their wedding. However, Stephanie and Daniel's marriage lasted only 18 months. In 1995, the princess filed for divorce after the paparazzi spotted her husband in very compromising circumstances with the owner of the title of Miss Nude Belgium. 3 years later, unexpectedly for all subjects of the principality, the Royal Palace of Monaco announced that Stephanie had become a mum for the 3rd time. Baby Camille Marie Kelly was born on 15 July 1998. However, instead of the name of the child's father, there was a dash in the birth certificate. Camille's father was Jean-Raymond Gottlieb, another bodyguard of the princess. The absence of a permanent man around, it seemed, did not weigh on the princess, who plunged headlong into the joys of motherhood. "Being a mother is the only true meaning in my life," she said at the time. Still, Stephanie's rebellious spirit was unstoppable. In 2001, when she was 36, she met married elephant trainer Franco Knie during the annual Monte Carlo International Circus Festival. A spark immediately struck between them, and the princess soon decided to move into Franco's circus trailer with her 3 children. Obviously, these conditions were not ideal for her children, says royal columnist Phil Dampierre. It was very difficult for them to get an education. However, Bidisha's film director biographer, S.K. Mamata, takes the opposite view. She says that through such an unusual upbringing, Stephanie was showing her children that another life is also possible, and that adventure, romance, and following your dreams are as important as the conventions that the royal family expects you to adhere to. Stephanie's romance with Franco lasted only a year, but her relationship with the circus, or rather with its representatives, continued for several more years. The new lover of the princess was Adence Lopes Perez, a Portuguese acrobat who worked in the same troupe. They lived in a legal marriage for only a year, but even after leaving the circus forever, Stephanie retained fond memories of this amazing romantic and life experience. The princess never married again. Instead, she concentrated on charity, social, and educational work. In 2005, Stephanie founded the association Women Against AIDS, and in the following years, she became a Goodwill Ambassador for UNAIDS, the UN's arm against the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and chairperson of the organizing committee of the Monte Carlo International Circus Festival. She also rescued 2 elephants from the Lyon Zoo in Lyon, France, who had been diagnosed with tuberculosis, and took them into her care. Perhaps it was her selfless help to others and her attempts to make our world a better place that gave Stephanie's life meaning, gave her new bearings, and allowed her to finally calm down and stop running from the death of her mother, her own demons and disagreements with her family. Today, looking back on her turbulent youth, Princess Stefania doubts that she can be called the White Crow of the Grimaldi clan. "I never thought of myself as a rebel, although, of course, it all depends on what you consider normal," she says with a smile.